Okay, I have you gentlemen back. Folks, we're back for the fourth hour, final hour of our program tonight with Tom Horn and Steve Quayle. We've been talking about transhumanism, fallen angels, 666, mark of the beast, Nephilim, UFOs. Gentlemen, let me give the microphone back to you.
Well, are you at this point, Tom, do you want to just take a few minutes to finish up your thought before we go to questions?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to give you the end of that quote. I dropped this paper and was trying to pick it up while we were talking, this newspaper, and this was when Al Gore came in during the discovery of potential living organisms in that meteorite from Mars, and his question was the discovery of alien life, how would it impact people of faith? And I lost the quote, but here it is. Stephen J. Dick, NASA's chief historian, a member of NASA, was in the room, and he said, quote, all the Abrahamic religions will have to adapt because the relationship of God and man is so central, and the idea that man was made in God's image and put on earth is so strong that if life exists elsewhere, it would challenge the creationist concept that life on earth is extraordinary and therefore paramount to a creator. A God that created the earth and life on other earths, he said, would still be majestic, but the logic, listen to this, of him being someone to pray to and to get salvation from would diminish, end quote. So this just goes along perfectly with the discussion that we were having in the previous hour about the Vatican's position that the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence could represent a new evangelizing of the earth and the need by the great faiths of the earth to adapt their religious beliefs, Christianity included, to what we've historically known to be fundamental Christianity, that we're going to have to change, we're going to have to adapt, that these beings are coming here to evangelize us. And evidently, this is believed in the deepest corridors of our government as well.
And I just want to go on record as stating that even though most people cannot receive it yet, that we have obviously, according to Mr. Rich, who was the head of the Skunk Works, we have already transcended galaxies. The technology of Stargates is real. All of the stuff you see with the Saturn rocket program, the shuttle program, that's like just for public display. The black stuff, meaning black ops, black projects where a lot of money has disappeared from the defense budget. I mean, you can see the cahoots. This is the perfect, here you go, Tom, intergalactic dialectic, okay? Mm-hmm. In other words, they are creating the very realm of the Matrix, which is aliens created us, or they were even created by God, but there's no personal need for Jesus or salvation. This must be the great deception. This will be the great deception, and only those people that are close to the living God, because boy, they're going to be rattled. And again, those of us who speak out against this are not going to be very favorable entities. We will not be welcomed on the talk radio circus to dispute the new gods, little g's, that are nothing but the old gods. This is just the return of the fallen ones, and seduction will be at its most paramount zenith, and I think that's what it's all about. And for the record, Cydonia, remember this, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just what you see on top of the surface of the planet if you're given the real true pictures. It's what's underneath. It's not what's on the Giza Plateau. It's underneath the Giza Plateau. It's always hidden in plain sight. Phobos, there's articles, I've talked about it being artificial, been told that by military, but people can't receive that, Tom. The problem is that we can tell them the truth until we're blue in the face, and we'll do that because that's our calling in God. But unfortunately, the biggest lie, the biggest fantasy, the biggest mind melt is soon to come upon the planet, and that is who they're going to believe. Mm-hmm. So, hey, you want to open up with questions?
Absolutely. I have a whole list. Are you all gentlemen ready to answer some questions?
Yep.
All right. We have a bunch, so we'll try to do as many as we can, folks, in the remaining 50 minutes here. Let me go to the first one. Okay, this comes from a listener. It says, the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel ascribes 7 weeks to the appearance or coming of Messiah as Prince. From the second commandment to restore Jerusalem, it says the Knesset passed the law declaring Jerusalem the eternal capital of the state of Israel in 1950. but the prophecy pertained to the holy city, which wasn't under Israeli control till 1967. And they say 7 weeks or 49 years would take us to 2016 as the start of the Great Tribulation. That seems to line up with your dates. What are your thoughts on that?
Tom, you want to direct it because it really doesn't line up. It basically shows the ending in 2016.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I even followed the question exactly, and I could kind of go on and on about particular dates or how they might line up, but I'm not sure I really understood it.
Hey, Bruce, why don't you go to questions? I'm not dismissing it or diminishing it, okay? But go to questions that are more germane to what we're talking about, because Tom just detailed in great length with the Mayan calendars and the Kali Yuga and all of the different stuff. So, I mean, no offense, but that's already been answered. I would recommend the person who asked that question to go back and listen to the last hour.
Okay, next question. In all the conversation tonight, where would demons come into play with the return of the Nephilim, giants?
I would like to answer that because I have a little different take than Doug Hamp and a lot of other people. I mean, everybody's welcome to challenge it, but on the basis of Scripture, I see when you look at the word demon in Greek as daemon, and the demonized, it literally means to be demonized, daimonizomai. A demon is a disembodied spirit of the giants. That's really spelled out in detail in the book of Enoch. And I'm just telling you, there's a difference between a demon and a fallen angel. It's probably not in the best interest to argue it, but when Jesus cast the demons out of the Gadarene demoniac, they immediately wanted to enter into the pigs. Typically, fallen angels can change their shape and shapeshift, but they usually don't possess human beings. And that's what I said about the Egyptians and others. I believe that the very bodies, if you will, or earthly housings that these things were inhabited in ancient history, are being prepared in contemporary history for their rehabitation. In other words, they're moving back into their own house, and even Jesus used that language in the parables of the unclean spirits.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with you on that one, Steve. My question I would ask you is, would demons be ancillary to all these problems that these beings are going to create and these genetic mutations, or are they going to be just as big enough a problem as the others to deal with, that we're going to have to be assaulted from all sides?
Do you want to answer that one, Tom?
No, you answer it.
I'll answer it. Well,
you're the expert.
Look, a demon is a disembodied spirit, okay? The giant, and I want to use the terms I use it because there's a lot of talk about Nephilim. There are people who argue. I use Nephilim as the fallen ones, even from the Hebrew root Nepal, which stands for to fall. There are people that challenge me on it, but I'm just telling you, even the history of the Himalayan mountains and the country of Nepal, it literally means the mountains of the gods, the fallen gods. Bhutan, in that same region, is called the Garden of Gods. So when Tom and I were talking about the dead, the Raphaim, some people make that fallen angels. I do not. I separate Nephilim from Raphaim. In the valley of the Rapha, in Hebrew, it means the valley of the giants. Giants are not fallen angels. Giants are the progeny of fallen angels, or they're the genetic product of genetic manipulation, but they are not the same as fallen angels. Fallen angels, you can't kill them, and the giants, obviously we know, were killed. God himself put a special charge, if you will, and even the book of Enoch even talks about how many are going to be freed to roam the earth, and Solomon got into trouble, even though history records that he could control the demons to a certain extent because he disobeyed God and allowed idolatry to come into his life through occult practices. The demons ultimately turned his heart away from God, and that's what got Solomon in trouble. He didn't know how to say no to occult women practicing their dark arts, and we're in that same situation. Bruce, you made the statement, life is in the blood. I suggest to you that the fascination with vampirism, occultism, the biggest movie in the land is Twilight or whatever the offshoot of that is. The bottom line is people are fascinated with death, and I believe that it is a spell, an external spiritual energy that's drawing them to damnation.
Well, I would agree with you, and y'all may get a kick out of this. You know the story, Steve. We open lines every day, and we do deliverance with people. And, people don't believe that demons are real. They only have to listen or maybe go to some of these mass deliverance conferences we do. But several times we have interrogated these demons and commanded us to give it its name, just like Jesus did. What's your name? Said a legion. And we've had several of them identify themselves as Abaddon. I had one that called in one day and it said its name was Helios, which is very interesting. And I'll tell you something even funnier is a couple days ago we had a demon on the ropes, as we say. It's manifested, and, when they reveal themselves, they know they're in trouble. And we bound it in Jesus Christ's name, commanded it to tell us its legal right to be there and so forth. Well, I just thought I would get a question in, and I said, you have any Nephilim in there? I said, where did you come from? Do you remember the flood? And I've tried my hardest to get them to admit. And the best I got out of it was a cackle. They seem to be proud of the fact that it's a mystery to a lot of us. And
I got to tell you, Bruce, the thing is that that you want them out there, but I've learned from experience interrogating demons. The Bible specifically calls them lying spirits, and unless the Lord tells you to do that, He gives us a command. I think John Quayle would agree with this. What is your name? But they will play with you. They will lie to you. They will run you around. Let's get to the questions for Tom and myself because you and I can talk about that anytime. I only get Tom once a year, so I want to give Tom time.
Okay, I want to make sure I've got, let's see here. There are just all kinds of questions. Let me throw this one at you. While I believe the U.S. will not remain unscathed in what to me is the coming of World War III that's right around the corner, I've heard some claim that because we're a Christian nation, we are going to be spared. Then I hear the prophecies of Dmitri Duduman and others. What is y'all's opinion? Are we ground zero for these last day events? Is America Babylon is the question.
Well, go ahead, Tom.
Certainly, I would not suggest that we're going to be spared from anything, and there's a lot of different controversy about whether America is Babylon. So I would probably not even try to answer that question because it would take too much time with the time we have left.
Yeah, and I agree with that. For people that want to know, they should go on the internet and order Richard Coombs' book, Coombs. He is a very brilliant scholar, and by the way, he and I are not friends, but he is a very gracious author, a very well-researched author, called America the Babylon. I personally am of the opinion that America is the spiritual Babylon. We are the mother of harlots, and I believe, obviously, Jesus called Jerusalem Babylon. Obviously, Iraq was Babylon, a historic Babylon, but we are commercial Babylon, and we're going to be destroyed. Are there any specific questions for Tom relating to what we've talked about? Because if there aren't, I'd like to let Tom continue on with the Vatican and what's coming, because this is going to be the greatest deception, Bruce. And what I thought people were going to ask us is specifically linking to what we were talking about.
I would agree. Time is precious. Let's go ahead and turn it back to y'all, and I'll get these questions forwarded to you another time.
Okay.
You'll take it over, brother, in the final 45 minutes we got. It's my honor to have you on. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Tom, we left off at just talking about, you were quoting Al Gore. So in your opinion, how will the deception play out? And, I'm not asking for dates or times, but, Jesus talked about, the love of the great body waxing cold. You can already see the preparatory everything from television, from the arguments of theology versus cosmology. So how do you see this playing out for the listeners?
Well, it depends on which part you want to talk about. If you want to talk about transhumanism, if you want to talk about
let's talk about the alien religious. Let's talk about the religious.
There's something very strange here, and I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
And it has to do with this subject matter because it really is a question to me, and you're more of an adept at this and more informed at this than I am. Do you believe, Steve, that there are human-alien hybrids walking among us right now?
Yes, I do. And let me share with you why I know there's a big argument over that. I have also been told, Tom, by multi-star active duty generals that there are clones and there are actual human, and that's not a word, non-human clones that look like humans, okay? In other words, replacements. Now, that's hard for people to think about, and let me share this. 10 years ago, what you and I are talking about now wouldn't have been received. But I believe one of the things that has come out, of you and I going on talk radio and all the interviews and series we've done together, we've forced our hands. People used to say, oh, that's nonsense. Jurassic Park had never happened. My answer then is even the same as it's now, only more advanced. They've already done it. There's nothing that they admit to doing that they haven't done and gone beyond. So, yes, I believe there are alien-human hybrids because as a basis for that, all the alien encounters of obviously people being taken, the abductions, the sexual probing always centers on the human genome. Always. So based on that, based on what I've been telling, now look, I want to make something clear. I do not know by experience. I've never been in the advanced technology that we have. But when the head of the developmental company for all of the United States' advanced black projects, the triangular-shaped TR3Bs, which Hawk and I used to talk about, Tom, that no one believed, and now there's 10,000 YouTubes of triangular-shaped craft hovering in the air, and they're being seen all over the world. When we're told that those things can jump space, when you and I basically started talking about stargates, the ancients, by the way, wherever you see a spiral in antiquity, for instance, a spiral on a petroglyph, that was the ancients' way of designating a stargate. Just like when we saw the Norway spiral, when Barack Obama went to Norway to receive, his tongue-in-cheek Nobel Peace Prize. The fact is that I believe that we are so far advanced. I have been told, literally, by special operations generals that obviously these things exist in laboratories, and even what you wrote in Apollyon 2012 and some of the other stuff that you've written. I mean, I've been told, yes. So I'm not trying to hedge or anything. Absolutely, unequivocally, yes.
Well, the reason I ask that is because in addition to the project Petrus Romanus, I'm working on another project right now it's related to this. It actually is related to the year 2012. It has to do with this possibility. And so I've been reading a lot, Vallée, all of his contemporaries, and it seemed to me that all of them determined that whatever the modern alien presence represents, its goal is the collection of DNA for what appears to be, first of all, a breeding program, followed by a hybridization program, and then finally an integration program. And that is exactly what Watchers accomplished with Nephilim in ancient times. And so I'm wondering if I'm seeing the fulfillment of prophecy here.
Yes, you are. I mean, and I know that sounds really emphatic, but I've got to tell you, absolutely, in the mouth of two or three witnesses, let every word be established, absolutely, there is absolutely so many, and I know the word absolute, I know what it means, and I'm just telling you, you're right on, and you're going to come to that conclusion. I think you already know it, but based on all the reference material and based on what everybody knows, and listen, Dr. Basiago, who George Norrie has interviewed, he has been so exact in what I know about Mars and about all the Stargate technology and everything else that's going on. I never heard of the man. I don't know the man. I don't correspond with him. But when I sit down or sit in the presence of people that claim that they were part of that program, and so, my favorite complaint is people say, well, my uncle was in World War III, and he says that he had a top-secret clearance, and you're full of, whatever he says I'm full of. I say to him, do you even know what a cosmic clearance is? Do you even know what majestic clearance is? And normally they scratch their head or some other part of their body and just walk away and grunt. The point is, I am emphatic in this that we're trying to plead with people to do their own homework, and what you and I have done in our homework, Tom, is exemplified and illustrated in the books we've written for the sake of even our critics. If they'll be honest and have the integrity, at least moral integrity or an honest integrity to prove us wrong, then set out to prove us wrong, but at least look at what's out there. And I'm only telling you this, it is so far beyond, and can I tell you how I finally come to grips with this personally? Maybe you've come to grips with it a different way, but Jesus said if I've tell you earthly things and you believe me not, how can I tell you heavenly things? Because there are some people who are only now starting to get what we're talking about, and based on what we've just done for the last 3 hours, going on 4 hours, man, they don't have much time to get with the program, because it all starts December 21st, 2012, in a way that's going to shake their paradigm, and all what people have known as reality is going to change.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things earlier that I think we ran into the end of an hour, and I never even talked about with regard to 2012 and Malachi O'More-Gare, St. Malachi, the Catholics, the last Pope. There's really something to this that is coming, and it's going to strike the world off center. As a matter of fact, I don't know how big the audience is right now, if it's mostly just me and you, and this is going to...
no, sir, we still got quite a bit of an audience live stream on the fourth hour. Y'all keep going. This is important.
Okay. Well, anyway, the bottom line is there's been something here for a while. I've been researching this for a while, and this whole prophecy about Malachi O'More-Gare, I never gave a lot of credibility to this until recently. I think there's something here. In fact, I'm convinced now that the final Pope, imagine what that means, Steve.
I got it.
That the final Pope is here. That the man that I believe is going to be the false prophet of the book of Revelation is here. And that the very next Pope will assume a position in the year 2012, and that this is the fulfillment of end times prophecy. We've talked about this kind of stuff for a very long time. I've become convinced that Petrus Romanus, whose reign is going to end in the destruction of Rome, is here now. And there is some deep, deep occultism around this. This is not ice cream social on Sunday stuff for most listeners. This is a prophecy. It is symbolic of the pontificate. It's the final Pope. And there have been people, I think, who were aware of what was coming and when it was going to be here, and they're deceased now. And not all of them died of old age, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Some of these were Catholic priests. We've talked about Father O'Connor. We've talked about Alfred Coons. We've talked about Malachi Martin. And as a matter of fact, just so you know, myself and my associate, for research into this upcoming report, Petrus Romanus, the final Pope, is here. I'm pushing for the investigators' newest information into the Coons murder. In fact, the Dane County, Wisconsin Sheriff's Office being very tight-lipped about this, partly because the case is still unresolved. But I learned through Matt Abbott, who's one of the most well-known Catholic journalists who's been following this case for years, that the original lead detective, Kevin Hughes, recently retired. There's some questions around that. We're hoping that the current investigator is going to be able to talk to us, give us some answers on some certain things, but it has to do with knowledge that Father Coons had about satanic activity, including ritual sacrifices that were meant to imbue with power the person who is forthcoming. Malachi Martin was very vocal about the levels of black magic rituals, even sacrifices. You remember in his windswept house.
Right, and I think that it's interesting, too. People have got to understand this. When you see that the U.S. Air Force, this is directly related to what you're saying, has now endowed with officialdom Druid, Wiccan, and basically every form of paganism, and it is call it neo-paganism. The thing is, it becomes a little troubling to me that 274 bodies of supposed servicemen are dumped in a garbage dump, and I said that to a couple people, and the discerning people said there's way more to the story, and I'm going to leave it there for now, Tom. But all I'm saying is this: is that if people even had a glimpse, and I want to say something on the Mayan calendar. Thank God you said what you said. There are so many other calendars. The Mayans were bloodthirsty cannibals, okay? I used to get in fights 20 years ago with people saying, no, they weren't, and, all this stuff, and then that the Desert Southwest Indians weren't cannibals, and, the point is that I'm just going to share this. The cannibalism and the human sacrifices now started back up in the Yucatan. Just as the Mayan priests used to go into caves with their sacrificees about 2 years ago, people were being found in caves that had their hearts cut off and their heads cut off, hearts cut out and their heads cut off. And I said on the air, I said, it's going to come, it's going to come. So, I cannot believe the acceptance of paganism, the denial of Jesus Christ, and now the assimilation of Christianity into the Borg. It defies logic to me, and I know Jesus said it was going to happen, but it still makes me furious.
Well, and by the way, it's not just Christianity. The Emory professor, Jewish priest at Emory University. People want to Google the story. The title of the headline is "Jewish Law Supports Reproductive Technologies," says Emory professor. Go to Emory University's own website and look at the Jewish rabbi saying that human-animal chimeras are the future, that they're correct, that human cloning is correct, that it is our responsibility to create an improved form of humanity through integrating ourselves with humans. So it's not just Christianity. The religious, whether it's the Vatican, Christianity, Jewish quarters, what in the world is going on with our religious leaders right now that are adapting what can only be thought of as a revival of Watchers technology?
I have an answer for you, Tom. A man who's dead now, and his first name was Tex, worked for the agency and stuff. He told me flat out, he said, Steve, if you look at these guys who are in agreement, he says, never assume they are who you think they are. Assume, and this man had the bona fides, okay? I'm just telling you, the bona fides. And the point is he said, you'd be surprised who you see as a public figure isn't who you think they are. They're an it, not a he any longer.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Well, we didn't have time tonight to talk about an awful lot of this stuff. There is a lot of breaking news right now. The last time I did radio with you in the Days of Noah series, we were talking about a Reuters headline called "Scientists Want Debate on Animals with Human Genes." There's a whole backstory to that about these scientists who wanted research funds from the government to do research into human-animal chimeras at the embryonic level, but they came back, and that Reuters article was about those scientists who had been doing that research, getting public funds to create these splice-like creatures at the embryonic level, but they were back. And if you remember, in fact, the first paragraph of that article, if you recall, said something like a mouse that can speak, dogs with human hands and feet. What they wanted to know is, would the public be willing to let them now take this to the next level? Could they start these islands of Dr. Moreau, start creating Watcher-type offspring and grow them to full maturity for military and experimental purposes and pharmaceutical purposes? And, now, just in July of this year, in fact, I have the Academy of Medical Sciences published a 200-page report. I have the report. If you don't have it, I'll email it to you, in which they admitted that thousands of these fully grown things have been created, that the science is advancing so quickly that they're calling for an international regulatory commission. By the way, they're not opposed to the technology. They don't want the technology to be prohibited. They're just saying there should be some rules around it. But get that report and read it, where they talk about creatures who have altered cognitive capacity, approaching human consciousness, sentience, human-like behavioral capabilities. And the one that startled me is the bullet point that they make about situations where functional human gametes, we're talking about eggs and sperm, could develop from precursor cell types in an animal where fertilization between human and animal gametes could then occur. We're literally talking about the ability to procreate between humans and animals. And according to the Academy of Medical Sciences, this is in Britain, this is like the FDA here, they're admitting that this science, it's out of the bottle. It's happening it's happening in numerous places. So
was it interesting to you that the U.S. government passed a law that now makes bestiality legal in the military? There was more to that, and I
saw that.
Yeah. So what I'm telling you is when they're talking bestiality in the military, and I know that a lot of people get offended when you talk about this stuff. I never mean it to be graphic, pornographic, but I guess it's about time that God's people grew up and acted in their own faith to speak out and to whatever degree pray against this stuff. But I mean, they have its now, and I'm serious. They have sex. When I say this, they have a combination human simian that looks like it's got sheep wool on it and big blue eyes, and I mean they breed these things for really perverse sex stuff. Now that's all I'm going to go, okay? But I mean the thing is that we talk about this. And just like the statement, I guess, or people are arguing on the internet, I see different people arguing that there aren't such things as Nephilim hybrids now, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I got to tell you, when you're talking about boundaries, look, until man and using Nephilim technology, the bounds that God made, you didn't have horses taken after chickens, okay, to have galloping eggs. I'm trying to be a little bit facetious. But the point is that now these guys have taken down every barrier. And the Bible says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? My answer to that is, I will call upon the name of the Lord, who is greatly to be praised, and so shall I be saved from all my enemies. And this is an enemy. Again, the thing that bothers me the most is, look, you know this and I know this. This thing's going on hyper velocity every day. And for the record, there are Dr. Moreaus. And the area that they're most associated in right now, people like to find this out, is in the South Pacific. Interestingly enough, the same area that George Bush put off limit in the last, I think, day or two, or maybe as late as a week of his tenure as president. But he put a whole lot of the South Pacific off limits. I have talked to people that have worked on those islands, and literally nothing that Hollywood has even begun to try and put into cinematic version can they even match what exists on those islands. Well, yeah. I've watched a man who is he by his own claims and according to people who knew about him by reputation, who was a paid assassin, weep and cry at the monstrosities, his word, of what once were human beings. I got to tell you something. Usually you don't get cold-blooded killers to weep in front of you. By the way, my goal was to win him to Jesus. Only God knows if I succeeded or not. But the point is that I watched in my own two eyes. I know people that have been on those islands. They contact me after hearing. So the point is, I don't care their names. And when I say that, I don't physically know them. I don't sit down with them, and I couldn't tell a name I don't know. But given the thought of Dr. Moreau, and if you, who was the author of Island of Dr. Moreau?
Yeah, that was H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. And H.G. Wells was one of the adepts. He was actually what's the word I want? He was a member of the Egyptian priesthood, so he was well aware when he wrote that, and he wrote The Time Machine. If you think of what H.G. Wells wrote, he had to have a source of information beyond anything that was contemporary to its time. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that really got people's attention. And again, it's absolutely everything that you see in Hollywood. Not every single thing is true, but a lot of it is true. Look, Michael Crichton, before he died, one of the most phenomenal box office successes was Jurassic Park. And now you turn on the BBC or the London Daily Mail, and they're going to clone mammoths. Okay. Hey, we have one of the most famous, in Bozeman, Montana, we have the Museum of the Rockies. We have Jack Horner, who Steven Spielberg patterned his lead character after in Jurassic Park, and his whole goal, his whole dream since he was a child, his quote, was to basically bring back dinosaurs to life.
Gentlemen, just to give you a gauge, you've got 23 minutes. I wanted to ask you both, did you see that movie that came out a while back called Splice?
Yes, I did, and I think Tom and you and I talked about it, didn't we?
Yeah, and when I talked with you about it, I had not seen it, and then somebody sent me the DVD. They heard me talking to you saying I had not seen it. They sent me the DVD, and then I saw it. And of course,
man, if that wasn't Genesis 6, I don't know what was.
Yeah.
That's good.
In fact, astonishing how the creature sprouts wings, and it's just
and grows in size.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from a blob of goo, and out of the blob of goo comes this thing with a tail, a female thing with a tail, who mates with the scientist, produces another offspring, and the bottom line is that at the very end you've got a tall giant with wings. I think Tom, they knew something in that movie.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a wicked movie.
I think that was the most evil movie by the spirit behind it that I've ever seen in my life.
And trying to make it seductive. That's the thing.
Yes.
You create this monstrosity, but you try to make the monstrosity seductive to man. There's something very demonic about it. But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Are there alien human hybrids among us now? And if there are demons that are either pretending to be aliens or are integrated with humans, and they're behind some kind of a fantastic breeding and hybridization scheme, what's the purpose? And that's the question that I've been putting to like scholars, people like Gary Sterman, and Sterman believes that this is actually happening too, Steve, just so you know.
Yep.
He actually believes it is happening, that there are people walking around among us, and that they are hybrids. These are dark overlords, and that they're here to repeat what happened in the days of Noah, to create a generation of genetically altered pseudo-humans for the service of Satan, by the way, in preparation of Armageddon.
Right, and by the way, they are the ones, the actual alien, let's just call them alien/hybrids, who are actually in the Pentagon. So when a thing like the World Weekly News or the National Enquirer carries a story, aliens in the Pentagon, okay, everyone poo-poos it. But when you talk to people who have been involved in the super soldier program, and again, I'd urge all the listeners to look into that, and they're saying these people are not human. Here's a good email that I got that really applies to what we're talking about tonight. Tom, I mean, you're going to be on the History Channel, or who just put you on film last?
I was History Channel, and also the conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura has asked me to fly to New York. I told him I don't think I'd go.
Right. Well, listen to this. Hoping you might comment while you're with Bruce and on Omega Man with Tom about the rise in secular research insight into ancient aliens and why sources like the History Channel are now suddenly addressing it. Why are secular sources considering this a pertinent issue? I think, Christian, we've already answered that, but will you answer it one more time plainly, Tom?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, you said, why is the History Channel, so involved in ancient aliens, and why are they suddenly addressing this? Why are the secular sources considering this a pertinent issue? Where they used to poo-poo it, now they're promoting it.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's because it's a question on people's minds, and people have a sense of something right now. And it's not just the fact that they know they can market it or they can make money off of it. People, I think, right now feel that something unusual is unfolding. Our buddy David Flynn. How far ahead was David Flynn of so many different people who have plagiarized his material when he started out at the dawn of the Internet talking about a lot of this information, right?
Yep.
Talking about alien hybrids and the scheme, an end times deception aimed at misleading mankind. That the Book of Enoch, in fact, Flynn was one of the first ones that pointed out, that I found, that pointed out how the Book of Enoch explains that the sons of God descended onto the mountain of Hermon, but that those angels intended to thwart God's plan for the earth by destroying the descendants of Adam, and that Satan's goal in organizing the Nephilim, or human hybridization program, was to pollute the bloodline that would produce Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the kinsman Redeemer, and that now that we are close to the end times, Satan has orchestrated human rebel angel interaction on a grander scale, and the plan is to prevent any flesh from being saved by manipulating human genetics, whether through the guise of alien abduction or supplying willing mortal accomplices with the proper technology. There is currently being created humanoid hybrids who are not quite human. The second wave of hybrid Nephilim creation, right? It's Satan's last effort to destroy the sons of Adam so that none can be redeemed when Jesus Christ returns at the end of the age. Now, that plan's not going to succeed, but that's never stopped Lucifer before, and certainly not going to stop him now.
Gentlemen, you'll mention Petros Romanus, will be the last pope. Does the Antichrist walk among us right now?
I'm going to say yes, and also the false prophet does, and also you should look to see some frightening things. Even though you're men of God and you have great faith in God, but within 6 to 8 months from now, there could be some things that could almost unhinge you. And it will be a good thing that you have great faith in God.
Right. I want to share something with you. I am absolutely convinced, if you look at the book of Revelation, that concurrent with the Antichrist, the false prophet, etc., the two witnesses, the two real witnesses, are on the earth right now. I'm telling you point blank they are. I won't say any more than that. There are people who challenge me, how do you know, blah, blah, blah. Suffice it to say, they are on the earth. I'm talking now. People will argue, well, who are they? You say they're Enoch and Elijah. Yep, I do, and I'm not going to argue that with anybody. But I can tell you this, concurrent with the rise of Antichrist and the false prophet, they begin their ministry too. In other words, when the two supernatural dudes from hell show up, God's two prophets and the two most amazing men that didn't see death yet will be bodily back on the earth, and they'll be able to strike the earth with every plague that that Moses did during leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. Again, most people do not and cannot handle that. They'll make it figurative. And by the way, Tom, I've received 41 people claiming they're one of the two witnesses. I've claimed, probably 36 emails over the last year, people saying they're Elijah. Trust me, the real ones don't need emails to announce who they are.
Yeah, right.
And also, every convoluted star child, beam boy, and everything else, beam, B-A-M. In other words, they've been beamed down from Pleiades, and I ask them about their technology. Well, they can't remember. So what I'm saying is there's sure kooks out there. But when you say it's going to come down, I mean, it's going to shake us. I know that, brother. I know what it's like to be sifted like wheat, okay?
Yeah. And it's not going to, I'm not suggesting it's going to destroy you or shake your foundations or anything else, but there are people who are behind information, and these are very extraordinarily dark and dangerous people, and you have to be willing to put your life on the line to be able to push against their hidden agenda and to try to unearth their hidden agenda. There's reasons why Malachi Martin felt his feet get pulled out from under him and he fell down the stairs and died. There's reasons why Alfred Coons had his throat slit. And these people are very serious. When Martin described the satanic animal sacrifices linked by telephone to the Vatican's Chapel of St. Paul, sure enough, if you look into the Coons murder, there's a similar Luciferian signature, a sacrifice, connected to the murder of Father Coons, where a sacrifice was made at a farm only 15 minutes away from the church where Father Coons presided, and his throat was slit, genitals cut off in an occult ritual fashion, exactly 24 hours before Coons was murdered, and his throat slit in similar fashion. And I'm telling you that we're going to make a strong case that just like Father O'Connor had, just like Pope Paul I had, Coons and Martin were onto something specifically, that the Catholic Church had been specifically targeted by infiltration by members of the Illuminati Masonic Superforce, as they called it, because of the Church's geopolitical influence in the world. And this is going to come into play in the next few months. The end of the prophecy of the popes is here. It's been uncannily accurate, and actually it provides information around who the next pope is going to be. I think we're going to tell you who that is, and this within the next 90 to 120 days. This is going to be this will be the biggest and probably the final thing that I personally am going to work on. But we'll see.
Right.
Could be that I'm wrong, and I'm willing to accept if I am wrong. But we're not taking any shortcuts on this, and so that's about all I can say about it. But it's going to be it's when I say it's the biggest thing I ever have done, I'm not trying to hype it. What I'm saying is it's the most important thing that I've ever done, and I feel very impressed that there's a time coming very soon. In fact, maybe Steve, maybe we'll come back to you and Omega Man, and maybe that's the format under which we'll first start discussing what this information's all about. And part of it I can't talk about because it's not just me. I'm working with other people,
right.
And there's some things that we need to confirm. But I think we've already hit the nail on the head. But we'll wait and see.
Well, I think too, Bruce. I want to thank you for both Tom and I. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to just say something. I gave up my own daily talk show because I just got burned out on talk radio, but I still couldn't run away, or even though I wanted to, I took the position of it's better to say no to God and do it than say yes and not do it. But the point is that Bruce really does this, and Pastor John Quayle, and they need your financial support. When I hear that we've got 250,000 downloads on the last show or whatever it is, and I know that my brothers can't pay their bills, and that Pastor Kyle's living in a camper in Montana, and I don't know if you know what a Montana winter's like, and yet he comes on Thursday night or whatever night with Bruce and ministers deliverance and sets the captives free. When I hear a man of God that's like that, and when I see what Bruce has done with Omega Man, I'm asking everyone who's blessed by these presentations to absolutely look. He didn't ask me to do this, but it wouldn't hurt, people to write him a check for $5-10, whatever, PayPal him, and support him. He puts his life on the line. Tom puts his life on the line. I put my life on the line, Hawk. And so when I see the guys who are raising $250,000 on a marathon, I'm not jealous by any means. All I'm saying is the Bible teaches give honor to whom honor's due, and what is it, credit to whom credit's due, or whatever. But the point is that both Bruce and Pastor Kyle need your support. And the best thing I can say is some of you who are listening to this show are incredibly wealthy. Look, I have no problem. I've made a lot of people a lot of money, and God knows, the greatest joy I have in my life is being able to help people financially, and to the degree I'm able, I can. But I also know that these men who labor amongst you, the Bible says this servant is worthy of the hire. Those of you who don't go to church, who go to Omega Man, listen every night, would you consider tithing? I want to share something too, Todd, that tithing is not of the law. It was given in Genesis when Abraham met Melchizedek returning from the Battle of the Kings. Jesus, book of Hebrews says, ever lives. It's a love offering, and you're saying, I believe these men, I'm talking about Pastor John Quayle, and I'm talking about Bruce. These guys are doing the will of the Lord. And when Tom is one of the busiest guys in the world, and you really are, Tom, that's not flattery, that's just true, man. I twist your arm and ear.
You're not telling me anything.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I get you once a year. But ladies and gentlemen, tonight was a gift from heaven. Will you please consider writing the check you can to Omega Man? All of his information is on it. Bruce, what's your mailing address? Because again, brother, you are worthy of the hire. You are in the service of King Jesus. And I tell people, God is the most giving, gracious creator in the universe, and it is a blessing to give as you've been given. I'm not talking about people who don't have any money, people who can't pay their bills. I'm talking about those of you who listen. And I know by how many people are in the chat room, and I know how many downloads that Bruce and I had the last show. I think I know what we'll get on this show. This show will go viral all over the world. So in helping Bruce, helping John Kyle, you are helping to preach the gospel and to set at liberty them that are held captive. And I'm going to say this. If those of you who listen for a year and give nothing, you don't go to church, you better really think about give, and it shall be given unto you. Because I can tell you this, David said he has been young and now is old, but he has not seen the righteous forsaken nor a seed begging bread. And when I know what Bruce brings in, and I know what I go through to get on this show for 4 hours and what Tom goes through, and ladies and gentlemen, you must keep Tom and your prayers. I'm asking you, intercessor, to pray for his safety. He already had one attempt to get him. They burned his house down, ladies and gentlemen. And some of you sit like spectators, and this is some kind of a theater that you can't wait for Quayle to get killed because then you'll know at least he told something true. I mean, shame on you that look at me as a canary in the mine, or look at Hawk in the mine, who has basically a stroke. He has a diabetic shock. He dies. He leaves his body, and through the prayers and intercession of God's people, he comes back into his body, and he's back on the air. Greg Evenson right now, ladies and gentlemen, needs a massive touch from the living God. They don't know what's going on in his brain, but he was hit with some form of a weapon. He's been bold. He's been brave. He's been out there. These men of God need your support. And I got to tell you something. Those of you who have great wealth, and you know who you are, or those of you who are sitting on a bundle of money, why don't you be a blessing to Bruce? I'm not asking for anything for me, and I'm not begging for Tom. I don't beg for anyone. I'm just saying, why don't you consider putting your treasure where your heart is and doing something for someone? The only people I write off in life, and I'm sorry, this is a shortcoming, are people that have been blessed after I prayed for them, and God's multiplied their money 3 and 4 times. And if I ask them to help somebody with $100, they never talk to me again. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm seriously asking you to consider writing Bruce at Omega Man a donation, and I know Bruce will take care of Pastor John Kyle, but these men labor. They are, in essence, they are the sewer cleaners in the body of Christ. These guys are the plumbers, and if there's ever an area of ministry that gets absolutely no support and total contempt, or total neglect is maybe a better word, not contempt from those who get set free, but total neglect from those who basically need to get set free, the basic thing you've got to do is learn to put your money where your heart is, where your treasure is, and believe that God is going to do something, because the witness I get in emails of people listening to this program, Tom, we're getting them right now, by the way, they're coming into me too, that people are saying, I'm so grateful to you guys, God bless you. Well, listen, if you're grateful to us, bless Brother Bruce and Omega Man and John Kyle, who comes on this show. These men of God have ministries that transcend national boundaries, but I'm telling you this, thank God Jesus owns the cattle, God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, because from what I can tell, his people can't even scrape up, or will not scrape up, grasshopper wings and honey, the menu of John the Baptist. And I'm not being critical, I'm not being cruel, I'm not being mean. I'm not talking to people who can't pay. I'm not talking to people that can't pay their rent. I'm not talking about anybody like that. But I'm saying those of you who can afford to help and take the gospel seriously, please support Omega Man. It's the only show I seem to be doing now. It's the only show I'm led to do. And Tom, when I said to Tom, I said, Tom, this show has got an amazing anointing. It goes worldwide within hours after it's downloaded. And I know the fruit fruit of it. It's touching, so far, I think, over 100 nations, people in 100 different nations who listen to this broadcast have called me or emailed me as talking about what a blessing is and what a refreshing it is to have somebody really dealing with the issues that they're pastors and there's nobody else to deal with. So please, ladies and gentlemen, honor the Lord with the first fruits. And I got news for you. Bruce isn't out, like some of the pickpockets in the pulpit trying to decide which color Rolls Royce he has, or making statements he's going to build a house that makes Solomon jealous. The point is that these are men of God who need to feed themselves, feed them families, and do it, please, as unto Jesus. That's the last thing I got to say, brothers.
Gentlemen, we have 3 minutes remaining. I would like each of you to make any final comments, and please give out your contact information. Tell people how they can order your books.
Well, Bruce, this is Tom. I'd like to say amen to what Steve Quayle just said. First time I've been on your program, and I talked to you a little bit earlier on the telephone, and I think perceived your spirit. Steve, I would tell you that kind of intercession, John Knox, was so well known for that type of intercession that the Queen of Scotland, Bloody Mary, who burned the Protestant reformers at the stake during the Marian exile, she confessed that she feared that kind of intercession more than an army of soldiers. And I hope people will listen, that they'll contribute to Bruce and to this ministry. It's certainly worthwhile. Bruce hasn't asked for anything. You did. I'm glad to have been able to be on this program this evening, and I hope that people will listen. News reports tell us that records were set on Black Friday. Even in spite of the economy, people have a great deal of money. They went out and they bought a great deal of product. And so I'm very convinced that there's going to be those. They have some money they can give. And, Steve, they're going to have heard your petition, and they're going to respond to it, and thank God, and give to a ministry like this that is an end times ministry that is taking the gospel to the ends of the earth while there's still time to do so. And there's going to be people who are going to join you, Steve, in that effort and participate in support of this kind of ministry.
Gentlemen, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Your contact information? Brother Tom?
Anybody that wants to contact me can do so through RaidersNewsUpdate.com. Raiders News, Raiders like the football team, RAIDERS, RaidersNewsUpdate.com, and they'll see the tab, the contact tab on the top of the website there.
Brother Steve?
Let's see. Hey, Tom, I'm like you. You lose track of time. I got to tell you, I got an attitude issue I'm working out with the Lord. I don't care what day it is. I don't. I'm looking forward for events, and that's an honest statement. You can get a hold of me. Let's see, who am I? www.stevequayle.com. And ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the equivalent of 8 broadcast hours had we taken the standard broadcast clock and done this. And Tom, you're gracious. Bless you. May the Lord God of heaven refresh you. Bruce, may the Lord God of heaven meet your need. And John Kyles, bless you guys.
Gentlemen, the microphone is yours anytime, and I look forward for you to come back for part 2. Anytime you have it available, you let me know it's yours. God bless you both for coming on tonight.